Do you want a build that requires absolutely no brain cells to play? A build where you can be completely AFK and watch enemies die while you just sit back and think about all of the things that you've done wrong in your life? Well, do I have the build for you? Hey guys, Big Ducks here, welcome back to the channel. Now, I wasn't lying about being able to lean back in your chair. This build, you can actually just sit back, relax, and do absolutely nothing on a lot of bosses. Now, this build does require a little bit of investment, but normally as the league goes further on, the price of this build goes down. Currently, there's about 5 to 10 uniques that you're going to absolutely need to be able to play the build, and it's going to cost you somewhere in the 1, maybe 2 exalt range to get it going. However, remember, the price of this may go down, or depending on this video, it may go up, but we'll have to see. Now remember, if you like my content and you want more people to see it, like this video, and also consider subscribing for more content similar to this. Now without further ado, let's take a look at some of the things that we did, and then we'll get into the video. You don't want me to be in the same party as you, that's what it is. Oh wait, what the? None of my golems are summoned. Hold up. None of my golems are summoned. Literally, I don't have any golems. Oh. Leave me alone, dude. They're gonna kill my golem again. You can make all of the, like, any item that you could ever imagine, you can pretty much, like, deterministically make right now. Alrighty, let's see how this goes. Pretty good. Alrighty, so this character is Slammin' with the Boys. Now, this is a Stone Golem Elementalist character. Now, some people who play a Carrion Golem Elementalist or a Carrion Golem Necromancer, this one's Stone Golems. There's a little bit of a difference, but not too much nowadays. Recently, the Carrion Golem character was nerfed. Stone Golems, still pretty solid. You can do quite a bit of damage. With some investment, you can actually get these golems up to doing about 800,000 plus damage each. Each of them. We got 7 of these stone golems. 800k DPS each. Now, a lot of people are going to tell me, oh, you need a bunch of cluster jewels to be able to do it. Well, you don't really need the cluster jewels. Honestly, with even perfect cluster jewels, it only gets you like 100, 200,000 DPS. I've got 2 versions of the build and path of building that we'll go over in a little bit. One with cluster jewels, one without. Now, the main barrier to entry of this build is really going to be the jewels. The jewels are the part that becomes expensive. Now, the harmonies are like, right as I made this video, like 30 chaos each. You probably need 4 to 8 of these, depending on how many that you want to get. There's also going to be Primordial Might. You only need 1 of this jewel, and Primordial Eminence, you also only need 1 of this jewel. But the big one that you really need to make sure that you get is the Anima Stone. This one is going to be quite a bit. The Anima Stone is, I think it's around 90. But yeah, so a couple of these jewels are relatively expensive. Keep in mind the prices might change over the course of the league. I have no idea how much these are going to cost at any given time. The other thing that you're going to need to make sure that you have is a Primordial Chain. This fluctuates in price constantly. I have no idea what this is going to cost. And then you're going to need some Cold Iron points. Everything else in this build is just random pieces of gear. You don't need anything crazy. It's really cheap beyond that. You just get some Fortified Boots, some random resistance stuff. We use a Rumi's Concoction as well as Glancing Blows. It's a very easy source of defensives right now. Just Rumi's Concoction plus Glancing Blows. Like, let's take a look at this. We've got 30% chance to block attack damage, 64% chance to block attack damage, 18% chance to block spell damage, with basically no investment, right? We have no investment into block whatsoever. It's literally just the base block plus Rumi's is getting us that much block chance. So it's ridiculous, this league. Abuse it, make use of it while you can. Now, this build is mainly focused around the golems and just doing a bunch of damage and spinning to win while it casts Desecrate, as well as whatever offering you want to use. We use Flesh Offering because the rest of the offerings aren't going to really do much for us. Now, this build does use 7 Stone Golems. It also uses a Lightning Golem and a Chaos Golem specifically for their buffs. So let's show you an example of a map. I've got one here. It's a Toxic Sewer map. This is honestly a really super dangerous map. It's got 100 extra physical as fire, 100 extra physical as lightning. Boss deals extra damage. Monsters take reduced damage from extra crits. So we're just going to run this, we're going to see how it goes. I have no idea how this is going to go. I haven't played this character in a couple of days. I mainly quit it because it's not my favorite playstyle, but let's give it a shot. Now the main way that the build works is you just kind of run around and let your golems slap people up. There's not much else that you need to do. The golems will just stay ahead of you for the most part. They'll slap things, they do pretty good AoE. You can curse difficult monsters if you really feel like it, and you kind of just spin around and let the boys go to town. Now, the Stone Golems themselves really aren't going to die too often. You'll probably die more often than the Stone Golems will, but this build in particular is mainly just focused around getting as many defensives as you possibly can. That's almost the entirety of the build is just defensives. As I said, this map is super rippy, so I mean, I'm just kind of playing around here doing silly stuff, but you'll see sometimes that the other golems die. Stone Golems are pretty indestructible, but this character doesn't have a ton of chaos resistance, it's not really set up perfectly yet, and we're still doing, I mean, perfectly fine. This is a T16 map with crazy mods, and we're mostly doing okay. But you'll see that the Stone Golems do this big slam ability. You can probably hear it a little bit, and that's the reason why the Primordial Harmonies are so important for this build. Primordial Harmony, what it does is it reduces the cooldown of that slam ability for the golems. So basically, the DPS of your golems is determined by how many of those you can fit into the build. Now, we also do use Enduring Cry on our left click. This allows us to just have a huge boost of regeneration and a bunch of endurance charges, basically all the time. Makes the build quite a bit tankier without having to do anything else crazy. This is a pretty simple build. You run around, you spin to win, you kill the enemies, there's not much else to it. So let's just go through, kill some stuff. There's not really much else to say, so I'll probably fast forward here to the boss, and I'll show you a little bit of the damage. Alright, so here's the boss. You'll see that once we get the golems actually going, and if they hit the boss, it's got to stack up a little bit, but the DPS, oh, well, actually they're, okay, there we go, now they're attacking the boss. So even in a T16 map, and I have almost no scaling on these actual golems themselves, the boss DPS is still really solid, and they actually have cull as well. So keep in mind, with the proper investment, you do 2 to 3 times this amount of DPS. Easily, like 2 to 3 times. With my current gear that I've got, I don't even have the right jewels and gems set up right now. Like, I don't have my flesh and stone linked with maim because I'm using some of these pieces of gear on another character. So this is not even close to indicative of what the build is capable of. It's capable of a lot more DPS. I'm pretty sure when I imported this character in, each of the golems is doing like 270k DPS because I'm missing so many pieces of the build. But you'll see in the actual path of building, they're doing like 700 to 800,000 DPS. So we're easily tripling the damage that we're doing here. That's most of what we've got going for the build. As I said, this is a very brief introduction to the build. We're gonna jump into the path of building, give you some more specifics about how the build actually works. We'll go over the leveling, some of my ideas for it, and I'll also show you how you can play the build without cluster jewels and with cluster jewels. But keep in mind, right now, due to the changes that GGG did, cluster jewels are ridiculously out of reach for almost everyone. Just the base cluster jewels for this build cost like 60 to 70 chaos for just the bases, not even the actual properly rolled ones. But you don't need the cluster jewels, they're just a luxury. So let's get into it. Alrighty guys, so this is the path of building. As always, remember there are links to path of building, the community fork, as well as a Pastebin link that will help you import this exact build into your path of building. Once you get path of building, head up here and click the import export build button, import from Pastebin, and paste the Pastebin link that you'll find in the description right in here, and it'll load you directly up into this build. So let's start out with the leveling trees. So in the first leveling tree, you'll see here at 1 to 35, the main focus of this tree is just going to be life and jewel slots. That's pretty much all that matters. So you're going to head out through the left. I know that seems a little bit weird. You're going to grab these nodes over here, grab some life, grab life and regeneration here. Going to head up here, grab some life. You can grab these golem nodes early if you want to, but I insist that you just grab the life, and then as you're getting close to 34, 35, grab these golem nodes, because if you want to transition into golems as soon as they're available, which you can, and it's fine, but just make sure that you've got all the gems ready to go if you're going to level as the golem build. You'll grab these golem nodes here, and then when we head over to 36 to 55, you're going to see that we fill in some life there. We're going to come through here, grab some more life. We're going to grab glancing blows. As soon as you start dual wielding, you have some level of block. This is just going to double that chance to block, give you a little bit more defensive layers. You're going to come up here, grab your first golem offensive nodes, and then grab a little bit more life. And when we head into 70, this is going to be where we start getting our skill points. You're going to see that we go a little bit further out on the tree. Going to grab some more life here, some jewel sockets. You're You're gonna grab more life, jewel sockets, more life, and you're also gonna grab Call to Arms. And when you get Call to Arms, you can start using Enduring Cry. Honestly, you can start using it before it, but just put Enduring Cry on your left click. It'll just go off every couple of seconds. When you have Call to Arms, it makes the War Cry instant. So if you put an instant ability on your left click, it's just gonna cast it automatically while you're walking around. But you can also see, we grab this Righteous Army node here. It's gonna give you some regen, and more importantly, it's gonna give your minions, meaning your golems, some more regeneration, a little bit more damage, and a little bit more life. Fill in some life, fill in some cluster jewels, fill in some jewels here. Now, cluster jewels we'll talk about later, but you can honestly just use these for normal jewel slots early on. Just put some normal jewels in them. It won't be any different. But we're mainly filling out life. Now, continuing on to the end game, you're gonna see we're gonna grab a ton more life, a ton more jewels, and you kind of get the picture at this point. This is just path of life nodes and jewel slots. There is one thing to note is that we do grab these endurance charge nodes here, these two, because we are going to be maximum stacked on endurance charges at all times due to using Enduring Cry. You can skip these if you want, but it's a good little layer of defense, and also it's just kind of nice to have more endurance charges in general. If you want, it will allow you to use Immortal Call if you want to have an extra oh shit button to press every once in a while. 5 endurance charges with Immortal Call make you pretty much immortal, as it says. And then on the final tree, we'll take a look at the no clusters budget version first. So the main thing that we do here is we finish grabbing a couple jewel slots. Now this is the version that I'm going to recommend that most of you do. We do grab some other nodes here. The main thing about this is it doesn't require any of the super expensive cluster jewels. All that we do is we just get as many jewel slots as we can, as much life as we can, and you see, even with this version of the tree, each of the golems, 850,000 DPS. That is per golem with their slam. Per golem. When you go into the cluster jewel version, you'll see it only goes up to about 1 million, right? I mean, there are better cluster jewels, like you can get like perfectly rolled cluster jewels that are a little bit better than this, but honestly, those are gonna be so ridiculously expensive. If you're wanting those, you'll know what you're looking for, because you're gonna be paying like 10 Exalt worth of jewels just to get those. These you can probably get for less than 1 Exalt, all combined if you roll them yourself. These cluster jewels, the main thing that we're looking for here is gonna be this Rotten Claws node. Normally, your golems are gonna have about a 60% chance to impale. With 2 of these Rotten Claw nodes, they're going to buff that up to 100%. That's where we're getting most of the extra damage from. The other node that we have here is just called Renewal. This is just going to give the golem some regeneration, and the stone golems are almost always on full life, so that 10% chance to deal double damage is just going to be pretty much constant. We also filled in some Primordial Harmonies here because that's the main way that our golems do damage. On the Primordial Harmonies, the mod that matters is golems have percentage increased cooldown recovery speed. The rest of the mods on here are not that important. They really, really aren't. Primordial Harmony is by far the most important jewel for this build. You want to shove as many of these as you can into the build because it gives the golems their regeneration, which keeps them alive, and it also lets the stone golems do their slam more often. That's all of their damage, is just being able to hit that slam over and over again. The more of these that you can get into the build, the better. That's the whole point of this build, is stacking the hell out of those Primordial Harmonies. So beyond that, there's not really much more to talk about when it comes to the tree. It's the same thing over here, Renewal and Rotten Claws. Now the Ascendancy is a little bit interesting in this case. The first 2 Ascendancy points are insanely powerful. Like, these cannot be understated how powerful they are. Liege of the Primordial makes all of your golems immune to elemental damage, just completely immune. They don't take any elemental damage. That means no cold, no lightning, no fire, none, 0, zip. It also increases the damage of you per summoned golem, which doesn't really matter. The big thing here is 25% increased effect of buffs granted by your golems per summoned golem. 9 golems is what I think it is at the end. Now that increased effect of the buffs granted by your golems isn't reflected here, but my character in game has like 1200 life regen per second. It's honestly kind of nuts. I don't even understand. It's like you're just constantly at full health no matter what. You saw a little bit of that in the gameplay. It's like I got hit for 90% of my health and it was like boom, back up to full almost immediately. It also gives us +1 to maximum number of golems. Elemancer as well also increases the chance to avoid elemental ailments per summoned golem. That means that you have pretty much 100% chance to avoid ailments. However, there are some things that can affect you. Like say if you're on like chilled ground or something like that, you're not able to avoid that. So getting like a flask that prevents you from being frozen or chilled will help with things like that. But this is going to cause you to avoid being hit with any of those ailments. Now on top of that, you're also going to be getting more increased buff effect granted by your golems per summoned golem. So you've got 50% increased buff effect from just these 2 nodes, as well as 2 additional golems. Now the other points are literally just the only things that assist us. When you get up to Paragon of Calamity, it makes it so that when you get hit by damage, you take some reduced damage of that element. That's literally all this does. It's that third line that just says, for each element you've been hit by damage of recently, 8% reduced damage taken of that element. That's the only useful line on this thing, but it's one of the only good things that we can get. The other thing is Pendulum of Destruction. It's only the 75% increased area of effect for 5 seconds. Nothing else on this build is actually worthwhile to get. I know that kind of seems bad, but these two nodes by themselves are just so insanely powerful that there's not really anything else to go. Shaper of Desolation isn't really going to do anything for us. Doesn't matter if all of our damage is able to do those ailments. We could just completely drop this and completely drop this and get Beacon of Ruin and try to do some like shock shenanigans, but you don't need it. You really, really don't. These two are probably the best ones to go. So let's talk about skills. As you know, our main DPS is going to be the Stone Golem, and the main way that we go about that is pure physical damage and Impale. Now I want to make sure that you know, the Stone Golem gem itself, it's very, very important that on the Golem gems, you give them quality. The quality on the Golem gems does give them a bunch of maximum life. You're gonna see here if I change this to 0, the maximum life on the Golem is only 82. We change this back up to 20, it's at 102% increased maximum life, and it gives them a little bit of damage. But that maximum life on the golems is no joke. Make sure that you get it on all 3 golems if you can. Now, a level 21 gem of this is going to be super expensive, so keep that in mind. It does increase the DPS quite a bit. Like, it increases it by 111,000 DPS by increasing that to level 21. But a 21 quality stone golem gem is pretty expensive. So beyond that, we have Impale. This gives them the base chance to impale. This plus our Dread Banner that we have that I'll talk about later on sets you at 60%. The 2 cluster jewels gets it to 100%. We use multi-strike. It's one of the best things for melee minions. It just allows them to hit additional times. Brutality is more physical damage. Melee physical damage is more physical damage. Minion damage is more damage. All of that should make pretty much enough sense. You just make them do a ton of damage. Other than that, we do run 2 additional golems like I spoke about before. We run a Chaos Golem. The Chaos Golem is huge. It's actually kind of ridiculous. It grants 5% additional physical damage reduction, but that's increased by those golem buffs. My character, when all of my flasks are popped, I literally have 90% reduced physical damage taken in the armor tab. It's not actually that much. It's a ton. You don't take very much physical damage on this build, specifically because of the Chaos Golem. Now, the other golem that we use is a Lightning Golem, and this is only because it's the only other golem that actually matters. That increased attack and cast speed is useful for both us and the golems themselves. Now we link Feeding Frenzy to these 2 golems because Feeding Frenzy is now a buff on your own character. So what that means is that this causes you to, I think it does like 10% more minion damage and 10% more minion attack speed and movement speed or something like that. I'm not 100% certain, but it's around those numbers. So this gives it to us, which causes all of our golems to have that buff. Because our Chaos and our Lightning Golem are giving us the Feeding Frenzy buff, it also applies to our Stone Golems. Last thing is Culling Strike, just so that we just finish anything off under 10% health. Now this next thing is kind of interesting. This is about the only thing that Cyclone is really associated with anymore besides Cast on Crit, but you've probably seen a lot of minion builds do this. This is Cyclone cast while channeling, and what this does is it allows us to cast Desecrate and Flesh Offering while being able to move through enemies easily. Now the other thing that's interesting about this is that it's very, very easy to craft some boots that give you socketed gems or supported by level 20 Fortify. I'll go into an option to be able to deterministically craft that modifier on any pair of boots as long as they're Elder. We'll talk about that in a minute when we get to gear. It's really super easy to get the Fortify boots. So don't go and spend like 800 chaos on some really good Fortify boots. You can make them very, very easily. We use Flesh Offering. Now, if you want your golems to survive a little bit more, which they don't really have that problem with this build, the Stone Golems are mostly immortal and you can just resummon the other golems quite easily. You can use Bone Offering to give them some more block, but honestly, the attack speed and the movement speed is really nice. It really is. Okay, other than that, we've also got movement plus utility. This is going to be our Flame Dash. This is the thing that we're going to be able to use to get across gaps. Otherwise, we kind of just run around. We also put our Enduring Cry in here linked with the Second Wind, so we have a little bit of an easier time using it. Second Wind is going to make it so that we can use Enduring Cry more often. Then we also have our Convocation here just to bring our golems to them and help us regenerate a little bit of their life. Now we have 2 sets of auras here. You can move these gems around a little bit if you like and slot them wherever you want, just so that maybe you don't want to put all of your gems together like this and you can keep your auras in, say, your gloves or something. But we use Pride, Dread Banner, and also Flesh and Stone. Now, Pride and Dread Banner, you kind of know what those do. Pride just makes enemies take more physical damage. Dread Banner is going to give our allies 20% chance to impale on hit with attacks. This is how we get to that 100% impale. And then also, Flesh and Stone is going to cause when in flesh stance or blood stance, nearby enemies are maimed, and enemies maimed by this skill take 16% increased physical damage. When you link this with maim, it also increases it by a lot more, because its enemies maimed by supported skills take 14% increased physical damage. So this ends up being 30% increased physical damage when these two things are combined. This maim effect, where it says enemies maimed by supported skills take 14% increased physical damage, that stacks with Flesh and Stone. That's a really big buff. Keep that in mind. We also use a portal. Now the last thing that we have, this is a additional thing that you can add to the build, but I want to kind of show you how much damage it does. So before we get into this, let's show you the DPS here. So in configuration, you're going to see that I have do your minions use frenzy charges. If I unclick this, you lose 300,000 DPS per golem. That's 300,000 times 7. 2.1 million DPS loss because they don't have those frenzy charges. The Hungry Loop is a ring that allows you to socket support gems in it and have them eat them when they get to level 20. So what we do is we have the Hungry Loop eat minion life, meat shield, and blood magic. Now you can have it eat Fortify as well, but you really don't need it to eat Fortify. The first three are the ones that matter. So the way that you do this is you grab Minion Life, Meat Shield, and Blood Magic. You just buy level 20 versions of the gem. You use the vendor recipe with a Scour Orb to bring them back down to 19, and then you toss them in your offhand, get them all the way up to 19 and like 99%, basically to the point where it says level this gem, and then you slot them into the Hungry Loop, you hit the level button, and it eats them. And you can do all three at the same time. And then you slot Raised Spectre into it, and it's linked with Minion Life, Meat Shield, and Blood Magic. Easy clap, you're done. You can have a 4 or 5 link Raised Spectre just in your one little ring. And what you do with the Raised Spectre is you grab the Raised Spectre and you get these Carnage Chieftains. These are the big monkeys that beat their chest in Act 7. In, I think, the Burning Place. It's the place before you fight Groost. The Burning Fields, Ashen Fields, something like that. You grab those monkeys. With Blood Magic and Minion Life and Meat Shield, they shouldn't ever really die, and they'll be able to cast their, like, mass frenzy over and over again. They'll keep all you guys up with frenzy charges. That's pretty much it for the skills. Let's talk about the items a little bit. Now I want you to keep in mind, I did most of the game with just some straight up garbage items. I don't have the cluster jewels. I don't have all these primordial harmonies. I'm like level 85 on my character with trash gear, like absolutely trash gear. I personally don't really enjoy the Golem playstyle that much, but I wanted to learn how to play it just so I could be able to teach you guys, because this is a really powerful build, and a lot of people find this build a lot of fun. So I'm just trying to do this service for you guys so you can see, you know, another build that you might enjoy playing. My gear, it's just some random stuff, man. I've just got life and resists. There's nothing special here. I crafted some absolutely garbage Fortify boots. The +1 to level of all Raised Spectre gems, that's cool, but I wasn't even using the Raised Spectres, to be honest. Like, I'm missing over half of the damage that this build can do in the clips that you saw. Like, I don't have most of it, so, I mean, it is what it is. But if we swap over to expensive items, most of the items are going to be the same, except you're going to see that we have a lot of items called expensive. So let's go through the actual items themselves, starting with the uniques. So this is Cold Iron Point. Now, this gives +3 to level of all physical spell skill gems. That means that our golems, when we're using 2 Cold Iron Points, are getting +6 to levels. That means a level 20 Stone Golem is level 26. That's all that these things do. They just give the level until our golem spells. Now, beyond that, we do have a helmet that's +3 to level of socketed minion gems. You can get +2 if you want to. It's probably a lot cheaper. You socket your other golems into this. It makes it so that the other golems are level 23. It's pretty nice. The 150% increase effect of the buff granted by your stone golems, you don't have to get that. Helmet enchants are never, ever, ever required. This is just the best one, so I tossed it on there. So as for the chest, this is a Warlord chest. Now, you can craft this somewhat easily with the new harvest crafting options. I don't really have a specific set of information for you here. Most of this build was pulled from one of my community members named Neri. She gave us a whole bunch of information about this build. This is the kind of chest piece that she's running right now. So this chest piece is crazy. The only thing that this build can't really do is reflected fizz, because your golems are just going to kill themselves instantly. This chest piece completely solves that. You and your minions take 100% reduced reflected physical damage. It also gives you +1 to level of socketed active skill gems, putting your golems all the way up to level 27. And it's got some life and some resist. This is a really hard chest piece to craft, but it's well worth it. Either of those mods, the +1 or the 100% reduced fizz. Moving on to the gloves, these are just some random gloves with some good stats, life, resistances, and the minions deal increased damage. The boots here are Fortify boots. Now, I told you I'd tell you how to make these. It is super simple, legitimately the easiest thing to craft. I'm not lying with you whatsoever. If you go look on the trade website, you're gonna see some fortified boots for a ridiculous amount of money. You wanna know how to make these boots? You grab some elder boots of a decent eye level, and you use the garden craft that says has an attack modifier or has a physical modifier. Level 20 Fortify is the only attack or phys modifier available. It is a 100% chance to get that on any craft that you do that says a physical or it says an attack. You just chaos spam roll the physical modifier garden craft or the attack modifier garden craft on some elder boots. That will come up every single time. Not even kidding. You can see the ones that I have. I literally just rolled on the same boots that I was wearing over and over and over again until I got something that was worth wearing. It's honestly kind of silly. Don't pay a lot of money for these fortified boots. Honestly, you can make a bunch of money off of making these fortified boots. Then we got the primordial chain. This is just going to be the golem necklace. You kind of have to have this. It causes your golems to have 3 additional of them. They do some less damage, they have some less life, but they also have 99% increased movement speed. This is a really poorly rolled one, but I mean, it is what it is. They can get up to 99% increased movement speed. It's kind of nuts. It makes them fly all over the place. We already talked about the hungry loop when we were talking about the skills. Our ring is just minus channeling cost by 3. This allows us to cyclone for free. It means that it has 0 mana cost. That's the big thing about this. Other than that, some stats, some life, some resistances. Same thing with the belt. Stats, life, resistances. It has an abyssal socket. That abyssal jewel is just whatever you can get. Life, mana, chance to taunt, chance to blind are all good things that you can go for. Our flasks, they give us some move speed. They give us some immunity to freeze and chill, immunity to bleeding, and immunity to curses. That's most of what matters here. We toss in a Rumi's concoction because we're going block. With a really good Rumi's concoction, you get up to like 65% block chance and 18% spell block with, what's the name of that thing? Glancing blows? Yeah, glancing blows. With just Rumi's concoction and no other investment. And that's pretty much it. In the configuration, this is what you can see here. We always have a max endurance charges. We always have frenzy charges. We have fortify. There's nothing else really that matters in here. We've got meat shield, feeding frenzy. Our specters don't curse, but the wrath aura is on. And as you can see, this is damage in enemy is Cirrus. So we're doing quite a bit of damage, like around 1 million DPS to Cirrus with this layout. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. Really super solid build that you can just straight up AFK to kill enemies. Alright guys, so like I said, that was the Stone Golem Elementalist, a very solid build. It does have a little bit of a curve on trying to get all the items for it, but it allows you to just straight AFK content. So remember, if you like my content, make sure to like it so that other people can see it, and also consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. I'm trying to put out a couple videos a week if I can. We've got a lot of stuff coming forward. I really want to thank everybody for the 10K subs that I got. We've only been doing this for like 6 months. I'm super appreciative of all of you that have stuck around, subbed to me, supported me. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Remember, you can also catch me on Twitch. I'm streaming regularly now, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern all the way until 4 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, every single week, pretty much every single day. There'll be notifications on YouTube. You can get those as well. But beyond that, stay safe out there in raid class, and I will see you guys in the next video.